It was Tuesday, the 14th of November. Ignatius Chombo, Zimbabwe's finance minister, had gone to bed early at his home in the affluent suburbs of Harare. Sometime after midnight, masked men, armed and wearing military fatigues, burst in and took him away. Now he's in hospital, purged from the party and under arrest. We've come to see if he can tell us his story. Thank you very much. Hello, sir. Mr. Chombo was in a bed behind a screen under armed guard.
3 soldiers in there saying, "Get out."
The following day, he appeared in court charged with corruption. But Mr. Chombo's real difficulty now is his association with Zimbabwe's former First Lady. Well, we've been hearing some really quite dramatic details about the arrests of supporters of Grace Mugabe on the night of the 14th of November. Events, really, that became the starting gun for the coup that overthrew Robert Mugabe. As night fell, the cameras assembled to catch a glimpse of one of Zimbabwe's most powerful men, humbled and shackled, herded into a prison van along with common criminals. As this country embarks upon a new era, some habits, it seems, die hard.
They came, bombed the gate to his house, entered through the roof, some of them. Others, they broke the doors, got in, broke every door in the house until they finally came to where he was with his wife and I think the maid. And they were all asked to lie down. They were then blindfolded and he was taken out of the house, taken to a place that he cannot tell what place that was. And at the end of the day, he was there for more than 7 days, blindfolded throughout the entire period of his incarceration.
Father Fidelis Mukanori is sometimes called Mugabe's confessor.
The events have been very fast. I was phoned by the Permanent Secretary and the Minister of Information. He said, "Father, you know something's happened 8 hours this morning."
A Jesuit priest and close personal friend of many years, when the generals made their move, they asked Father Fidelis to mediate.
The tanks were in the street. The boys were on the street. And these generals were as sober and as somber as anything. There was no sign of jitteriness or overexcitement or anger, no.
Did it strike you as a well-planned
It
operation?
was well planned.
The generals had drawn up a list of demands which centred around the reinstatement of the exiled Vice President Emerson Mnangagwa.
The main one was, we will not accept the legacy of Zimbabwe, the legacy of Robert Mugabe, to be drained out or to be fizzled out by opportunists. After finishing the meeting with the commanders, I drove to President Mugabe's residence, because they called it the Blue Roof, and we read the points one by one.
What was his reaction?
I've known Robert Mugabe as a guerrilla fighter and a leader. He never loses his calmness.
Not everyone who was at that first meeting remembers things going quite that smoothly. 2 people with knowledge of the conversation that day told us that Robert Mugabe said to the generals, "You can go to hell. You can kill me if you want to." And perhaps after 37 years in power, that's a more plausible reaction. But Robert Mugabe is the embodiment of power in Zimbabwe, and the aim is to control that legacy, not to kill it. It's a delicate operation, and it's not over yet. The removal of Mugabe from the presidency brought euphoria onto the streets of Harare. How do you feel right now?
Very excited, more than excited.
This is a new Zimbabwe.
The inauguration of a new president last Friday seemed like a moment of great promise. And yet, the figure of Robert Mugabe retains some respect for his role in the liberation struggle, despite a record of political violence, endemic corruption and unemployment.
People, they are desperate. That's why most of us, we have supported Mnangagwa because of jobs. We are jobless. Yes. Most of these people, they're actually holding degrees, masters, PhDs, I can say. But we are seated at home with nothing to do.
And can I ask you, how do you all feel about President Mugabe? Do you still like him or do you not like him?
We don't even like Mugabe. Since long, we did not like him, but we were afraid. Because if you were heard saying something negative about him, you'd be butchered.
But this was no revolution. The soldiers on the street heralded an internal battle within ZANU-PF, the ruling party. Mnangagwa and the military had gained the upper hand. Grace Mugabe and her supporters were losing their grip. Okay. Walter Muzembe is among the latter group. He was appointed foreign minister just before the coup, and he's a close confidant of the Mugabes. When the tanks appeared on the streets, his first thought was for his own safety. Nice place you have here.
Modest.
Yes, indeed.
I was in my bedroom upstairs. Yeah, I heard gunshots. Of course, I said, this can't be right, whatever it is. So you don't wait for yourself to be captured by anarchy if you suspect that's what it is. You don't wait for it to happen. I obviously sought sanctuary.
Where did you go?
I just went into a hotel.
Looking back, Mr. Muzembe says he should have known that trouble was coming.
For quite some time, the military were giving us warning. That
What kind of warning?
That if we insisted and continued to act the way we were doing in the party, they would intervene. So it's not like it just happened.
They gave you warnings specifically?
In hindsight now.
You realise they were warning?
They were warning us,
What
but
did they say?
we never took them seriously.
Right. That was a mistake. Grace Mugabe had made many enemies, using her power as First Lady to publicly chastise party stalwarts and veterans of the liberation struggle.
Well, she would correct even some of us in public, and there was absolutely nothing that I felt is wrong in our culture if you are corrected by a mother, except when it tends to border on abuse. But if she corrects me...
And is that what happened?
I think she behaved like that kind of mother who would punish her children in public, I think. And if that is what incensed others, yeah.
Now the tables had turned. From exile in South Africa, Emmerson Mnangagwa sent a message to Father Fidelis. He wanted to speak to Mugabe.
So I called him on my phone, my cell phone. And I said, I'm sitting next to the president. He also wants to speak to you. So the two spoke for exactly 10 minutes.
Mnangagwa had accused Grace of trying to poison him. Now he told his former boss.
He said, I had to leave the country for fear of my life. And that's why I left the country. You want me to come? I love Zimbabwe, would like to deal with the issue. Indeed, I will come. So the president said, please, please, come right away. And that was the last words.
That was on the Friday. By the weekend, people were coming out onto the streets calling openly for Robert Mugabe to go. These were scenes unthinkable just a few days earlier. On Sunday, Mugabe addressed the nation. Everyone expected him to resign, but still he clung on. Some people close to Robert Mugabe say that by this time he'd already accepted that Emmerson Mnangagwa would be his successor, but that he wanted to hand over to him personally at a party congress in December. Others, though, say that he was still haggling over the terms and conditions of his retirement, immunity from prosecution, the security of his and his wife's businesses and properties, even a lump sum in cash. Whatever the truth, by the following Tuesday, the 21st, Parliament had begun impeachment proceedings and the game was up.
So I personally was pretty much taken by surprise when I heard that he had capitulated and tendered his resignation. But I thought that happened on the back of pressure that was coming from the impeachment process in Parliament.
What do you think it was that finally made him capitulate?
He was betrayed by his colleagues by their last minute switch. But that's politics. Yeah.
Mr. Mugabe himself backed Mugabe to the last. Now he supports the new president. His loyalty, he says, is to the office. A short drive out of Harare, through countryside of rolling hills and gold mines, brings you to Mazoe. It was here that Grace Mugabe built her base, centred around a sprawling mansion behind stone pillars. This is known as Graceland. Many local people were pushed off their farms by the former First Lady. Those who remain are still uneasy. How has it been to be the neighbour of Grace Mugabe?
How are you?
See, people are still scared to talk. For the past 3.5 decades, this country has been held together by fear. Few expect that to change quickly. People said to me a week ago, I couldn't have come out on the street and said what I'm saying now. One person said to me I would have been... I mean, that gives you some indication of the kind of regime that people have been living under, that you were also part of.
Well, I didn't get the sense that there was any infringement of civil liberties in this country.
You don't think Robert Mugabe ran a repressive regime?
To demonstrate without a police order naturally attracted the reaction of the police at the time. And I don't think even this successor administration would authorize expression of freedom that relate to unauthorized demonstrations.
Do you think there will be a change?
They may have a false sense of freedom if they think that they can be out on the streets to demonstrate without police sanction.
For decades, Robert Mugabe outsmarted his enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, the combination of political acumen and intimidation that kept him in power for so long finally failed him. Father Fidelis was there when he was presented with his resignation papers.
He read them and he took his pen and signed. And when he finished his signing, his face just calmed. I mean, it just glowed, as if to say, well, it's over.
So, what happens now? The soldiers have largely returned to barracks. Life has almost returned to normal. After 37 years of rule dominated by one man and one party, the overwhelming imperative for the new regime is continuity, not change.